Mount Blue Sky is a mountain peak in Colorado that is over 14,000 feet in elevation. Its claim to fame is that the road leading to it is the highest road in North America and the 5th highest in the world. And in this video, we're going to drive to the top of it. Along the way, we'll learn why its name has changed 3 times, why they were crazy enough to build a road to the top of this peak in the first place, and why it is not a national park. We're Matt and Cheryl, and we are both educators. We have a mission to help you travel to the West by sharing our experiences and tips, as well as writing travel guides and audio guides to help you have a wonderful trip. Now, let's get going on one of our most memorable drives of all time, the Mount Blue Sky Scenic Byway. The starting point for the drive is the small town of Idaho Springs, Colorado. The road to the top of the peak then extends 28 miles into the sky. Halfway up, at mile 14, there's a booth where you need to show your reservation. This road is popular enough that you need to get a timed entry reservation on recreation.gov before you can drive the road. We drove this road in June of 2023. At that point, the peak was named Mount Evans. Just a few months later, it was renamed Mount Blue Sky. It wasn't the first time the peak was renamed. The peak was first scaled by Albert Bierstadt, who was a renowned painter of Western images such as Yosemite National Park. Bierstadt named the peak Mount Rosalie after his mistress, who was also his friend's wife. He painted several depictions of the lakes surrounding the peak. Well, eventually the people in charge of naming things thought that naming the peak after his mistress was kind of dumb, so they changed the name to Mount Evans after John Evans, a former territorial governor of Colorado who founded Northwestern University and the University of Denver. However, Evans had also been forced to resign as governor due to his involvement in the Sand Creek Massacre, an event in which several hundred Native Americans in Colorado were killed by the U.S. Army, the site of which is now a national park site. So in 2023, the US Board of Geographic Names, I guess these are the people in charge of naming things, voted to change the name to Mount Blue Sky to honor Native Americans in the area. The Arapaho are known as the Blue Sky People, and the Southern Cheyenne have an annual ceremony known as Blue Sky. And in our experience, the name fit like a glove. Just look at the gorgeous blue sky in this photo. The drive is a pleasant drive that starts mostly in the trees. It passes by Echo Lake, which is owned by the city of Denver, even though it's not in Denver. A strange fact that we'll discuss more later. Echo Lake also has a lodge that doesn't offer lodging. It was closed when we were there, so we just kept on driving, intent to summit our first 14er. Shortly after passing Echo Lake, we got above the tree line with our first view of the tundra. So it doesn't take very long for you to get up above the tree line, and then it is just tundra. And the tundra vegetation is really interesting. It's just so short. The stuff that can grow here is just so small. And the growing season, I think, is only like 30 days a year or something like that. The landscape is incredible, just so far up here. It says cool boulders and tundra. You might not think much about it today, but there were and are some challenges building and maintaining a road this high in elevation. It took 7 years to build the road, finishing in 1930. At this high of elevation, one of the biggest challenges was just having enough oxygen for men, animals, and even machines to work. Even today, some automotive manufacturers test out the viability of their vehicles performing at high elevations by driving them on this road. The other challenge was the weather. One supervisor during road construction said between the lack of oxygen and the severe weather, heavy construction equipment was impracticable, and the contractor did practically all the work with station gangs who, with a shovel, hammer, and drill, dynamite and determination, and copious amounts of Copenhagen snuff, literally forced the work through by hand in spite of every obstacle. And here I am complaining about a few bumps in the road, but really it remains a challenge to keep up the road in the face of damage caused by winter and the marmots who burrow underneath the road. Due to the heavy winters, the road is only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We've arrived at the original purpose for the road, Summit Lake. This absolutely gorgeous lake sits at the base of the peak full of ice. Surrounding it was some of the coolest grass and marshy landscape we've ever seen. It reminded us of the dead marshes in Lord of the Rings.
We are at the very uniquely beautiful Summit Lake. I just cannot put into words how fascinating this area is. It's just fascinating to see all this snow and ice and such beautiful and unique landscape. I am loving this, and it's just this little walkabout area. It's pretty flat dirt, but slippery because of the snow. We started our drive at 9 because we want to be off this mountain by noon, because that is when the afternoon thunderstorms come in, and they're very common for the mountains in the Rockies.
Summit Lake is actually a city park, part of the Denver Parks system. After the automobile became popular, Denver was looking for ways to help people enjoy the mountains, so the city purchased the property with the intent of building a scenic drive loop to the park. This was at the same time the National Park Service was created, so the city actually had visions of turning Summit Lake and Mount Evans into a national park. So why didn't it happen? Well, believe it or not, it was because of a little rivalry with the more established Forest Service and the upstart National Park Service. The Forest Service owned the land and refused to allow it to be turned into a national park. Today, the area remains part of the Mount Evans Wilderness, an area whose name wasn't changed to match the new name of the peak. Most of the drive isn't extremely intense. It follows a ridge that has some scary drop-offs, but is mostly a gradual ascent. The last stretch to the top is some fun and maybe scary switchbacks that was built entirely by hand.
Oh my gosh, I love this drive so much. It is so fantastic. And now we just found mountain goats. I can't wait.
There. What's up, guys? How you doing? All right, look at these cool guys just hanging out with us. Fun.
Take off your buckles.
Okay, we have made it to the top. Wow, what an amazing experience driving up to the top here, and what an amazing viewpoint from up here. It feels like we're on top of the world. This reminds me of the Zugspitzbahn, or the Zugspitz Peak in Germany that we were at last year in the Alps. I mean, wow, this is incredible. As you can see, the parking lot here isn't all that large, which explains why a reservation system is needed today. Surprisingly, the first thing we see is a hollowed out building. A private owner built this in 1940, persevering through the difficult climate to get it done. It was a gift shop and restaurant, providing donuts, coffee, and even emergency oxygen to those early tourists. It was named the Crest House, but affectionately called the Castle in the Sky. It was damaged by a fire in 1979, and reconstructing it proved too expensive. It's unfortunate because I think a lot of tourists would really like to grab a bite or some hot chocolate and enjoy the views. But here it lies in ruins, and the mountain goats now rule the Castle in the Sky. There is a little trail going up to the top, so you park right here, but then if you want to get to like the real summit of Mount Evans, you have to take a little trail to get to the top. Cheryl did it, said it was a little sketch at the end because it was all snow covered all the way up.
We made it. This was something else.
All right, let's talk about distances for a minute here. So behind me, way down there, is the city of Denver. It can be done as a day trip from Denver, so I've got to look at my notes here, but it is 60 miles from Denver to here, and that reservation you must get that on recreation.gov. It costs $15 plus a $2 fee just to stick it to you, $17 to drive up this road, which is nice because if they didn't have the reservations to spread out the crowds, that road would just be a train, I'm sure, going up. There's quite a few people up here. So once you go through the checkpoint station, it's 14 miles to the top. And of course, it's a slow going 14 miles. You're probably going about average of 25 to 30 miles for the whole way. The nice thing about that is all along the way, they have the mile markers showing you how far you're going. Your 1 mile, 2 mile, 13, 14, all that stuff, which was kind of fun to know where we were along the route.
One of the amazing things about Mount Evans is the wildlife. There are a lot of marmots and mountain goats on this. We're still looking for some bighorn sheep. I'm hoping we see some on the way down, but there is amazing wildlife. And something else that I think has been really fun to look for while walking around this place is the little tundra flowers. There's little succulents and little tiny flowers that are kind of like a little treasure hunt. So as you look around, don't just look out, but look down, because there's other amazing things to see.
Now, in case you were wondering about the effect of the altitude on people, here's where Cheryl started to show it.
No.
Colorado.
Thanks for watching, and go yesterday. Stuff on it, but I cannot talk, Matt.
She got a little lightheaded and couldn't get her thoughts out. It was actually pretty funny, but it is true that the altitude can affect people, and we're even used to high elevation. There is something like 25% less oxygen up here, so just be aware of that before heading out on your Mount Blue Sky adventure. The other thing is that behind me over here, you can see a bunch of mountain peaks. Mount Evans is one of 58 peaks in Colorado that are over 14,000 feet above sea level. Hikers come from all over. They try to check off as many of these 14ers as they can. There are two that you can drive to, though. Mount Evans is one. Pikes Peak is another one, which you can actually see from Mount Evans here. Pikes Peak is way south in Colorado, but you can still see it from here because you're on top of the world. This one, Mount Evans, is like 20 feet higher than Pikes Peak, so this one gets the claim of the highest road in America. So we can officially say we summited our first 14er. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of training and dedication. I'd like to thank my Toyota Sequoia for making it all possible. Hopefully this inspires you to conquer your first 14er someday.
Oh my goodness. I am pretty sure I will never see anything like this again. I hope you enjoyed watching it too.
This experience was part of our 9-day road trip through Colorado. Click the video icon on your screen to see our entire epic road trip through the Colorado Rockies. Thanks for watching.